Welcome back to Sleepers Podcast. Tonight, we're talking about the things we never said out loud. The apologies that stayed in our throats, the thank yous that felt strangely hard to say, the honest little sentences we almost said and then swallowed. I'm Mike, and with me tonight is my good friend Paul. Paul, thanks for being here.
Always, man. I like that you said good friend right before this topic. Feels like you're setting me up to confess something. I wanted to create a safe courtroom. A cozy courtroom. Exactly. Low lighting, no harsh questions. Just two guys quietly admitting they have terrible emotional timing. That might actually be the whole episode. We could wrap there. Before we do, how are you tonight?
I'm good. A little tired, but in a nice way. I made tea earlier and forgot about it for 20 minutes, so now I'm drinking warm leaf water. That feels appropriate for this show. It does. Very on brand. How are you?
I'm good too. A bit reflective, I think. This topic has that effect. Even just saying the title, the things we never said out loud, I can feel certain memories waking up. It's a dangerous title. Very calm, but dangerous.
It sneaks up on you. It does. Because at first you think, oh, big confessions, movie stuff. Someone at an airport, rain, a hand on a taxi window. Naturally. But then it's actually like, I never told my old neighbor I liked his garden. And now I'm sad about tomatoes from 2009. That's the part I find interesting. The unsaid things aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they're tiny sentences that somehow stayed with us.
Right.
And they get heavier because you didn't say them, not because they were huge. Exactly. A thank you can become heavy. An apology can become heavy. I miss you can feel heavier than a full suitcase. That one is brutal. I miss you is such a small sentence, and people act like you're handing them a live animal. It does feel a little alive. It is alive, that's the problem. You say it and suddenly the room has to deal with it. That might be one reason we keep things in. Once a sentence is out loud, it changes the air a little. For sure. Sometimes you don't want to be the guy who changes the air. Especially if the moment seems casual.
Exactly. You're standing outside a grocery store with someone you haven't seen in 3 years, and your brain goes, tell him that friendship meant a lot to you. And your mouth goes, parking is crazy here.
Classic defense.
Undefeated. Parking, weather, traffic, sports, the four walls of male emotional safety.
I hate how accurate that is.
It's too accurate. I've lived there. Nice place. Bad lighting.
Do you think most things go unsaid because we're afraid of being rejected, or because we're afraid of making the moment too serious?
I think both. But the too serious thing is bigger than people admit. Rejection's obvious. Nobody wants to say something tender and get a weird look. But a lot of the time, it's not even that. It's more like, I don't want to make us step out of the comfortable little rhythm we're in.
Right.
You don't want to interrupt the normal version of yourself.
That's it.
You have a role with people. The funny one, the quiet one, the dependable one. The guy who doesn't make a big thing out of stuff. So when you feel something honest come up, it almost feels like breaking character.
Even though it's probably closer to who you really are. Which is rude, honestly. Very inconvenient. Deeply. I would like all sincerity to come with a 30-day warning period. A formal notice. Right. Dear Paul, on Thursday at 4:12 p.m., you will feel a sudden desire to tell your brother you admire him. Please prepare accordingly. Most of us would still avoid it. Absolutely. I'd be like, Thursday's bad. There's pride, too. Sometimes not a loud pride, but a quiet one. The kind that says, I'm not going to be the person who reaches first. That pride is sneaky. It dresses up as dignity. That's a good way to put it. Because you tell yourself, no, I'm just respecting the distance. I'm just letting things be. But sometimes you're just embarrassed, or scared, or stubborn in a cardigan. Stubborn in a cardigan is a very specific image. That's my emotional brand. I think timing plays into it too. There are moments when the thing is right there, almost ready to be said, but something happens. Someone changes the subject, the waiter comes back, the phone buzzes.
Or you make a joke. That's my personal specialty.
Avoiding sincerity with a joke?
Professional level. I have a story, actually. Small one. Painfully small. Perfect. Years ago, I had this friend from work, Daniel. We weren't best friends exactly, but we had that work friendship where lunch becomes almost sacred. Same bad sandwich place, same corner table, complaining about the same 3 people. That's a real bond. It is. Shared hatred of fluorescent lighting can bring people together. Anyway, he got another job, and on his last day, we went to lunch. I remember thinking, I should tell him this made work easier for me. Like, genuinely. Those lunches were the one part of that job where I felt normal.
That's a lovely thing to say.
It would have been. And right as we were leaving, he said, I'll miss these lunches. And I had the opening. The door was wide open. Emotionally, there was a red carpet.
And?
And I said, who else is gonna watch you eat soup like a stressed raccoon?
Oh no.
I know. And he laughed. It was fine. But I could feel the real sentence standing behind the joke, just holding its little hat. That's such a clear image. The real sentence standing there, politely.
Exactly. And then he left. We kept in touch for a while, then not really. No big tragedy, just life. But whenever I think of that job, I remember that I could have said, you helped me more than you know. And instead I chose raccoon soup. Which is funny. It was funny. I stand by the wording. Of course. But I wish I had said the other part too. That's what bothers me. Not that I joked. Jokes are fine. Sometimes jokes are love wearing a hoodie. But I used the joke as a doorstop. I kept the honest thing from entering.
That feels very familiar. The joke becomes a way to say, please don't look directly at what I'm feeling.
Exactly. Emotional sunglasses.
I've done that too. I think a lot of people have. And sometimes the other person understands anyway.
True.
But sometimes they don't. Or they understand a small part, but not the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part. You assume people know. Then years later you wonder, did they? I have one that comes to mind. It's not dramatic, but it stayed with me. When I was in college, there was this professor who was very kind to me at a time when I was quietly struggling. Not in a visible way. I was still showing up, still doing the assignments, still acting like I had everything mostly under control.
The classic.
I'm fine, but my backpack has emotional smoke coming out of it. Pretty much. And he noticed. Not in a heavy way. He just pulled me aside once after class and said,
You seem a little far away lately. No pressure, but my door is open. That was it. That's good. It was. And I never really went to his office to talk deeply or anything. But after that, he would check in gently. He'd ask how the week was going, recommend a book, make some dry little comment that made me feel seen, without feeling exposed.
That's a rare skill. Very rare. And at the end of the semester, I wanted to thank him. Not just thanks for the class, but something more specific. I wanted to say, you made that semester less lonely for me. I remember standing near his desk after the final class with my notebook in my hand, waiting for the other students to leave. Oh, man. And when it was my turn, I said, great class. Have a good break. That hurts because it's so normal. Exactly. It was perfectly acceptable. He smiled and said, you too. And I walked out. I can still picture the hallway. The old carpet. The buzzing vending machine. An awful bulletin board with faded flyers. And the sentence I didn't say felt louder than anything in the building. Did you ever tell him later? No. I thought about emailing. But then time passed. And the more time passed, the more dramatic it felt. That's the trap. It is. After a week, it's a kind note. After a year, your brain says, now this is a whole event. Now you need a string quartet.
And possibly a horse.
At least one horse.
That's the worst part about waiting. The sentence gets dressed up against your will.
That's exactly it.
It becomes ceremonial in your mind.
So you say nothing.
Do you think he knew?
Maybe. I hope so. But I don't know. And that's where the unfinished feeling lives. Not in the possibility that he needed to hear it. Maybe he didn't. But I needed to say it. That's important. Sometimes the unsaid thing isn't only a gift for the other person. It's also a way of putting something down. Right. Letting the moment complete itself. I think apologies are the worst for that. Because they get heavier every day. They do. A thank you can become awkward with time, but an apology becomes furniture. You start decorating around it. That's painfully accurate. You know it's there. You avoid that side of the room. And the longer you wait, the more the apology has to include. You're no longer just apologizing for the original thing. You're also apologizing for the silence after it, which makes you wait even longer.
Exactly.
I've done that. I've had things where I thought, I'll say sorry when it feels less weird, which is such a lie. It does not get less weird. It gets weird with interest.
Emotional interest rates are brutal.
Terrible market. Do not invest. There's also the fear of opening a door you can't close. If you apologize, maybe the other person tells you how much it hurt. If you say, I miss you, maybe they don't say it back. If you say you mattered to me, maybe they ask why you disappeared. And sometimes you don't have a clean answer. Right. Sometimes the answer is, I was young. I was proud. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to be honest without feeling weak. That one. Not knowing how to be honest without feeling weak, that's a big one. a lot of people were raised, directly or indirectly, to keep the emotional temperature low.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in families where everything important gets said through practical things.
Food, rides, fixing something. Exactly. I love you becomes, did you check your tires? Which is sweet, but also, come on, Dad. Meet me halfway.
Family conversations can stay surface level for years. Everyone knows there's more underneath, but nobody wants to be the one to break the surface. Because then everyone has to swim. And not everyone likes swimming. My family is more of a stand near the pool and talk about the weather group. That's many families. It's not loveless. That's the thing. Sometimes there's a lot of love. It's just wearing 15 coats and refusing to identify itself. I think that's why thank you can be harder than people expect. A real thank you is vulnerable. It admits, you affected me. You helped me. I needed something, and you gave it. Right? It puts you in debt emotionally, even if nobody sees it that way. And some people would rather carry the gratitude privately than feel exposed giving it. Which sounds noble until you realize the other person might have loved to hear it. There's a small example I think about. Almost silly. A friend once drove across town to help me move a couch. Terrible couch. Too heavy, ugly brown, one leg slightly cursed. Every couch has one cursed leg. This one especially. We got it up 2 flights of stairs, and at some point he scraped his arm against a railing. Not badly, but enough that I could tell he was annoyed. He still stayed, helped set it up, and left. And I did say thank you, but in that quick way. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. The default setting. Exactly. But what I wanted to say was, I know this was inconvenient. I know you didn't have to spend your Saturday doing this. It means a lot that you showed up. Instead, I handed him a warm soda from a box and called it gratitude. Warm soda is a cry for help. It really is. But that's such a real one. Because you technically said thanks, so your brain checks the box.
Right, but not the full thing.
And the receipt printed, but the message didn't send. That's a very modern way to put it. I'm a poet of failed communication. You are. I think sometimes we avoid the full thank you because it would reveal how much we noticed. And noticing is intimate. That's true. Like, I noticed you came even though you were tired. I noticed you asked twice because you knew I wasn't fine. I noticed you remembered something small. Those are beautiful things to say, but they make the room very quiet. And a quiet room can feel intimidating. So, someone makes a joke about the cursed couch. Naturally. As one should, to be fair. But then, years later, you remember the person's kindness more clearly than you remember whatever you were protecting yourself from. That's the strange part. At the time, silence feels safer. Later, it can feel like the thing that left you exposed.
Say more about that.
Well, in the moment, not saying something can protect you from awkwardness, rejection, conflict. It keeps the day moving. But later, when the chance is gone, the silence is what you're left alone with. The other person isn't there. The moment isn't there. But the sentence is still there.
It attaches itself to ordinary stuff, too.
Exactly. A hallway, a sandwich place, a couch, a particular intersection,
A song on the radio,
a holiday.
a mug. I have a mug one.
I'm listening.
This is the deeper one, I guess.
My aunt had this green mug she used every morning. Nothing special. An old chip on the handle. She was my mom's older sister. And when I was a kid, she was the adult who made me feel like I wasn't annoying. That's a huge gift to a kid. It really is. Because I was a lot. Not loud exactly, but curious in a way that probably exhausted people.
I asked endless questions. Why is that house yellow? Why do birds walk like that? Do clouds get tired? Just non-stop nonsense. Do clouds get tired is not nonsense. Thank you. Finally. Justice. I'm with young Paul on that one. She would answer like the questions mattered. Or she'd make up something gentle. Clouds get tired when the sky has had a long day. Stuff like that. And when I got older, I went through that teenage phase where you become allergic to showing affection. A difficult medical condition. Very serious. Symptoms include mumbling and refusing family photos. Tragic. She stayed kind through it. Never made a big deal. Just kept being herself. And when I was in my 20s, she got sick. Not suddenly, but quicker than anyone wanted. I visited her a few times. We talked about normal things. Groceries, my job, the neighbor's dog, which she hated but also tracked like a soap opera. That sounds very real.
It was. And there was one afternoon when I was leaving her house. She was sitting at the kitchen table with that green mug. And I had this strong feeling, out of nowhere, that I should say, "You made me feel loved when I was little." Just that. Very simple. And I didn't. I said, "I'll see you next week." She said, "Drive safe." That was it. She passed away not long after. And I'm careful with this, because I don't walk around crushed by it every day. I'm okay. I loved her. She probably knew I loved her. But that sentence still visits sometimes. You made me feel loved when I was little. Right. I wish she had heard that exact sentence. Not because it would have changed everything. It wouldn't have. But it would have been true in the room with her. That's such a tender distinction. True in your heart, but not true in the room. Exactly. And now whenever I see a mug with a chipped handle, I think about it. Which is ridiculous. And also completely not ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. I know. But you know what I mean. I do. Ordinary objects become little storage places for what we didn't say. That's it. The green mug is not the point.
but it's also somehow the whole point. I think stories like that are why people can be afraid to talk about regret. Because it sounds like you're saying your life is haunted. Right. But sometimes regret is quieter. It's not a ghost in the house, it's more like a light left on in one room. That's beautiful. Annoying, but beautiful. I accept that. The light is there. You can live your life. You can laugh, eat dinner, watch bad television. But every so often you notice the light. And maybe the work isn't always to turn it off completely. Maybe it's to understand why it's on. That sounds right. Because I don't want to erase that feeling about my aunt. It hurts a little, but it's also connected to love. I'd rather have the ache than not remember how kind she was.
That feels important. Not every unsaid thing is something we need to punish ourselves for. Sometimes it's just evidence that something mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And we were human inside it. Clumsy, late, embarrassed. Doing our best with the emotional tools we had, which were sometimes a spoon and a flashlight. A spoon and a flashlight. Maybe one battery. Not ideal tools. Not ideal, no. But you do what you can. Do you think some things are better left unsaid? I do. Not everything honest is automatically kind. That's true. Sometimes people confuse honesty with unloading. Like, I carried this feeling, so now you have to carry it too. I don't think that's always fair. There's a difference between expressing something and handing someone a burden. Exactly. And timing matters. Motive matters. If you're saying something just to get relief, but it will reopen someone else's wound, maybe silence is not cowardice. Maybe it's care.
That's a hard balance.
Very hard. Because the same silence can be protective in one situation and avoidant in another.
Maybe the question is, who is this silence protecting? Oh, that's good. If it's protecting someone else's peace, maybe that's one thing. If it's only protecting my pride, that's another. That makes sense. Although pride will absolutely hire a lawyer and argue that it is peace. Pride is very well represented. Very expensive suit. Sometimes we can still say things late. Not always, but sometimes. A thank you years later can be strange, but also beautiful. An apology can be overdue and still meaningful. I agree. I had someone apologize to me years after something happened. It wasn't a huge thing, but it mattered. And honestly, I wasn't sitting around waiting for it. I had moved on. But when they said it, I felt this little knot loosen that I didn't know was still there. That's powerful.
It was. And the apology wasn't fancy, no speech. They just said, I think I was careless with you then, and I'm sorry. That was enough. Simple is often better. Very much. I think we imagine these conversations have to be perfect. But most people just need the plain version. You mattered to me. I'm sorry. Thank you for being there. I miss how we used to talk. I didn't know how to say it then. That one might be the master key. I think so. Because it's honest, without making a huge defense. It doesn't pretend you had some noble reason. It just says, I didn't know how.
And that's often the truth. It really is. Most of my emotional history can be summarized as I didn't know how, and then I got hungry. That is painfully human. Thank you. Put it on my headstone.
I will not.
Fair.
For living peacefully with unsaid words, I think part of it is learning not to turn every silence into a character flaw.
Say that again.
Not every silence means you failed. Sometimes you were young. Sometimes you were overwhelmed. Sometimes the relationship didn't have enough safety. Sometimes the words weren't ready.
That helps.
And when the words still matter, maybe we can find another way to honor them. Say them to someone else sooner. Write them down. Let them make us softer instead of only regretful.
I like that. Let the unsaid things train you, but not punish you.
Exactly.
Because there are things I didn't say to my aunt that I try to say now to my nieces and nephews. Not dramatically. Just small things. I like how your mind works. Glad you told me that. You're not bothering me. Stuff I probably learned from her.
That's beautiful.
It feels like the sentence found another door. That might be one of the gentlest ways to live with it.
The exact moment may be gone, but the love inside it can still move forward.
Mm-hmm. That's not nothing.
Not at all.
Also, I want to say, for the record, if Daniel from the Soup Story ever hears this, you did help me more than you know. There it is. And you did eat soup like a stressed raccoon. Both truths can exist. They must. I think that's a good place to land. Maybe the things we never said out loud are not always asking us to go back and fix everything. Sometimes they're asking us to be a little braver now. A little clearer. A little less quick to hide behind the safe sentence when the real one is standing right there. Right. And maybe not every time. We don't have to become emotionally heroic at the post office. Please don't. Nobody wants that. But when it matters, maybe say the thing. Or at least say a little more of it than you normally would. That feels doable. Paul, thank you for this. Truly. Thank you, man. This was good. Quietly dangerous, like you said. The coziest courtroom. With warm leaf water. To everyone listening, thank you for spending this time with us. Tonight, maybe there's a sentence you still carry. Maybe it's meant to be said someday. Maybe it's meant to become tenderness in how you treat people now. Either way, be gentle with yourself. Something stayed unsaid because you were human, not because you didn't care. We'll see you next time on Sleepers Podcast. Good night.